This isn't Unreal Engine 5. It's not pre-rendered, and it's not from the future. It's a real-time physics demo from 2010, built for Star Wars: The Force Unleashed.
Just fix that. There we go. What you're seeing is digital molecular matter. A system so advanced, it actually simulates how real materials behave under stress. Wood doesn't just break, it splinters, bends, and falls apart based on where and how you hit it. And this ran in real time, over a decade ago.
I had no idea this tech even existed. And once I found it, I started wondering, what happened to this stuff? Why don't games feel like this anymore? And as I started digging, I realized this wasn't the only insane physics tech demo from that area. Around that time, it genuinely felt like physics were about to take over gaming. Every few months, a new tech demo would drop and make you think, this is it. This is the future. Crysis was letting you tear through trees, explode barrels, and watch every piece react in real time. NVIDIA was showing off fluid simulations that sloshed and splashed like actual water, something we hadn't really seen before. Arkham Knight based its entire combat system on physics, flowing capes, collapsing enemies, and reactive environments. And even Battlefield 4 was marketed around destruction. Buildings falling, walls crumbling, and chaos that changed the map mid-match. Physics weren't just a background system anymore. They were being sold as the next big leap in immersion, the thing that would finally make games feel real.
And I think that's what hooked me onto games so deeply when I was a teen. I never really cared how they looked, but I cared how they felt. I used to spend hours launching myself in like Portal 2, like throwing myself around and slicing zombies in half with those buzzsaws you can launch at them in Half-Life 2. I also played Halo 2 a lot as a kid. I was obsessed with these montages where you could use one grenade to launch a sticky grenade in another direction, use the game's physics, and stick someone. Shout out to Furion. If you know, you know.
It was this era where games felt unpredictable, reactive, and even a little chaotic. Like the game world didn't just exist. It was alive. And with all of these wild new physics systems emerging, it really felt like we were on the edge of something massive. And then it just disappeared.
Sometime around 2015, games started looking better. Sure, but something felt like it was missing. They felt flatter, colder, less reactive, and it made me ask the question I couldn't stop thinking about. What killed game physics?
At some point, the industry stopped focusing on how games felt and started optimizing for how they looked. Not in motion, not through gameplay, but in trailers, in thumbnails, and screenshots.
I started digging around my old games like Crysis and Far Cry, and then I realized physics used to be the main event.
You'd see fire spreading through dry grass, barrels tumbling, whole buildings crumbling because of how you interacted with the world. It was messy, dynamic, reactive, and most importantly, it felt like you were the chaos agent.
But somewhere around the mid-2010s, that kind of stuff just stopped being a part of the conversation. Instead, I noticed everyone started zooming in on close-ups, sweaty foreheads, subsurface skin, perfect lighting. It became about fidelity, not feel.
So I kept digging, and it turns out there's a reason for that shift.
If you're a publisher, what's the easiest thing to show off in your trailer? A physics system that you can't control, or a highly detailed, hyper-realistic face that always works? And suddenly, it made sense.
Physics systems are unpredictable. They can glitch, they can behave unexpectedly, they're hard to control, and even harder to package into a marketable asset. A collapsing building might look amazing, or it could clip through the ground. But a slow pan across a stoic, beautifully lit protagonist, that's always reliable. That sells. And so, slowly but inevitably, physics stopped being a selling point and started becoming a liability. And so I did some research, and here's where things got really interesting. Physics didn't just fall out of fashion, it actually hit a hardware wall.
You see, when I looked into how physics are handled under the hood, I found out they're notoriously hard to scale. Most of the time, physics calculations have to happen in sequence, like a chain reaction. If a crate falls, hits another crate, and then knocks over a barrel, the system has to process each of those steps in order. Back in 2000, your processor probably ran at around 2 gigahertz, and today it's 4, maybe 5. That's it. In 2 decades, CPU speeds have barely doubled.
Meanwhile, your graphics, they exploded. Thanks to GPU becoming insanely parallel and ridiculously fast. Lighting, shading, texture resolution, all of it scaled beautifully. But physics, it got stuck. Not because developers didn't care, but because the hardware and audience interest didn't grow. So yeah, physics didn't just get less popular, it hit a ceiling. And because it didn't scale well and didn't sell well, it quietly got pushed aside.
As I started digging deeper into why physics died, I came across a question I didn't really expect. Did physics maybe deserve to die?
I mean, as cool as it all was, maybe physics wasn't completely innocent in its own downfall. Because the more I read on this, the clearer it became. Physics systems are a pain in the ass. They're unpredictable. They break things. They ruin carefully scripted moments. Like, imagine trying to build a dramatic cutscene, only for a ragdoll to get launched into the sky mid-monologue. Or a player stacking 14 crates and skipping your boss fight entirely.
These moments are amazing for players, but are hard to explain to a boardroom full of executives. And from a developer's standpoint, they're hard to test, they're hard to optimize, and nearly impossible to control under pressure.
Even that amazing digital molecular matter demo from The Force Unleashed, the one that started this whole video, it didn't fail because the tech was bad. It was amazing. It failed because the company behind it, Pixelux, was small, the system was expensive, and publishers didn't want to take the risk. DMM worked, but it was unstable, costly, and hard to depend on. And in an industry where finishing a game is already a miracle, most studios probably weren't willing to gamble on a physics system that might collapse or disappear altogether.
And honestly, I get it. Games started pursuing a more cinematic feel, meaning that unpredictable physics were kind of a liability.
Why even use a dynamic system that might break when you can script it once and know how it's going to work every single time? Canned animations, scripted destruction, controlled experiences. It was safer, it was cleaner. And in a market where polish sells, physics just didn't fit the vision anymore.
But the more I think about it, the more that logic starts to fall apart. Because when I look back at the gaming moments people actually remember, the ones that go viral, get clipped, shared, and memed to death, they weren't perfectly polished cinematics, were they? They were chaos.
They were physics doing what it does best, breaking the rules, creating unexpected outcomes, letting players fail, improvise, and laugh in ways no script could ever plan for. So no, physics didn't deserve to die. It just stopped fitting into what the industry thought a polished game was supposed to be.
But that's not where the story ends. In fact, this is where things start to get a little bit interesting.
Because while most studios quietly walked away from physics, some developers didn't. They took that chaos, that unpredictability, that magic, and ran in the opposite direction. There's games like Teardown, which hands you a fully destructible voxel world and says, go wild. Boneworks and BoneLab rethink first-person gameplay entirely, treating your entire body as a simulated object in VR. The Siege lets you build medieval siege machines that usually fail catastrophically. And that's the point. And Totally Accurate Battle Simulator turns physics chaos into strategy and comedy. These games don't just include physics, they revolve around it. They treat unpredictability as a feature and not a bug.
So it's not like physics disappeared completely, it just became a little bit more rare. Maybe more of a design choice as opposed to the standard. But it gets even cooler than that because developers haven't given up. They've continued to push the boundaries of what's possible in game physics.
Fluid Ninja is bringing real-time GPU-accelerated fluids into Unreal Engine, letting fire, smoke, and liquids behave more naturally than ever before. I mean, look at this. Look how cool this is.
In Assassin's Creed Shadows, the wind isn't just a visual effect. It's actually a fluid simulation flowing invisibly through the world, bending grass, swirling leaves, and making every breeze feel alive. Dragon Age The Veilguard goes deep on hair physics with EA's Strand hair tech, simulating individual strands that react to movement, magic, and even moisture, creating some of the most dynamic, culturally detailed hair we have ever seen. And that's just scratching the surface of all the incredible tech hiding in modern games.
There's a lot more out there, if you know where to look.
But that's gonna have to be another video. So yeah, physics are pretty cool.